Shalom, and welcome back to Bnei Noach Academy, Thoughts on the Torah. Please remember to hit the like button, to subscribe, and most importantly, to share this insight and inspiration with friends and family. So, when you look in Deuteronomy, chapter 8, verse 3, Moses is reminding them their experiences that they had throughout the entire 40 years of travels in the desert. And of course, one of the most central things is the fact that they ate the manna. You know, our lives always surround food. Everything's about food, right? People don't just eat to survive. They almost seem to live to eat. But in this case, they ate to survive. And Moses reminds them how wonderful it is, how great it was. But something very odd. When you look in verse 3, again, chapter 8, verse 3, he says, Vayancha vayarivecha vayachlicha et haman, and he afflicted you. He afflicted you. He caused you pain. Vayarivecha, he let you go hungry, or he starved you literally. And he fed you. He gave you to eat the manna. What's going on here? Wasn't the manna perfect? How is this pain? How is this starvation? In fact, we know that this can't be. It seems to conflict what we know about the manna. We know that the Torah tells us already way back, this is in the book of Exodus, when they began experiencing this wonderful cuisine known as the manna, it says that God gave precisely the amount that each person needed. In fact, it says the one who went out there and collected more than they needed, by the time they came home, it was exactly that amount, miraculously. And one who took too little for whatever reason, when they came home, they realized once again that it's somehow inflated and they have exactly what they need for nutrition. Imagine every day you eat the correct amount of calories and intake of food that you need. So what is the element, what is the aspect here of pain, of starvation? Why is that? And why would God do that? If it's a negative, why would God do that? And obviously it's not a negative, because Moses is describing the great experiences that they had. So what's so great about it? Well, the answer is, and this goes back to the Talmud. The Talmud has a concept. It's called literally pat bisalo, literally translated bread in your basket. The fact is, and this is human nature, that when one has, quote, bread in the basket, one is less hungry. When you open the pantry, you open the fridge, and it's full, you're not as hungry. You're not starving. But psychologically and mentally, when you open it up and there's nothing there, or you're having your last piece of bread, even though you know in the back of your mind, and it's obvious, that all you need to do is wait for tomorrow and go to the supermarket and buy more, and certainly there's no reason to suspect that they won't have, but the fact is that right now you don't see it in front of you. You have a sense of hunger, a sense of starvation, a sense of lacking. And that's exactly what happened to them. You see, every day they received their new portion for the day, or portions for the day. Every day they received the food for that day. They were not allowed to leave it over for the next day. And in fact, those who challenged this commandment and tried, well, they failed very quickly, because by the time the next day came around, it was indeed spoiled, rotten, as if it had been lying around for weeks. This is contrary to the human nature. The human nature is such that when you see it in front of you, when you know what your next meal looks like, when you know where it's coming from, you feel less hungry. You feel less needy. They did not have that benefit. In fact, it was the exact opposite. And the question, of course, is, then what is the positive in this? Well, the positive in this was that God was training them to go somewhat against their nature. God was actually building their muscles. Which muscles? The muscles of faith and trust in God. Just like when you want to be stronger, you got to build your muscles. You can't just wake up one day and say, today I'm going to be strong. Today I'm going to be mighty. Today I'm going to have these blown up muscles. It takes time. And it's a gradual process. You have to build it up. You have to build up your strength and your stamina. Likewise, when you're entering a new career or whatever endeavor, it doesn't happen just like that in 1 minute overnight. Rather, you got to build up, and you build up momentum, you build up expertise, you get better at it. And that's when things really start to succeed. Likewise here, God gave them the training that they should become accustomed to the fact that although it's contrary to human nature, although the human being always wants to feel just comfortable knowing what I have and how much I have and what I'm going to have for tomorrow, what I have for after tomorrow, and what have I put away for a rainy day, which, by the way, is important to do. You have to act responsibly. But at the same time, God wanted them to build up their faith, build up the muscles of trust. And with that, the way he did it is he forced it upon them, because typically a human being will not self-inflict, so to speak, the pain of having to do away with their worry and training themselves, so to speak, self-training, that is, to have natural faith and trust in God. This is something which God pushed them to it. God pushed them into so to speak, into a corner where they had no choice but to build up their, what I call the muscles of trust in God. And this, says Moses, was the greatest gift that God can give you. It's not just the food that you ate. The fact that he delivered every day, even after 39 and a half years of doing so, still has not changed your nature. And your nature of the human being is like a spring. It can spring back. So what Moses is telling them, every day God was training you again and again, more and more and more and more, to be full of faith and trust in God. And that's what you need to do. He's not just telling us a story or what happened in the past, but rather he is encouraging us what we should do in the future, to take a lesson from what happened and take a cue from that and learn what to do in the future going forward.